Ooh, 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 ooh. Wow, thank you, thank you. First of all, can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? Can everybody sing with me a little bit from time to time? Thank you, thank you. So, beautiful beings, right here, this is the moment of our lives. This is the time of our lives. The past is history, as we know, and all of its pain, it's history. The future is an incredibly rich field of possibility, but right now it doesn't exist. It's unknowable. What we can know, what we can live in, is what? This present moment. And in this present, of course, is the abundance, the nutriment, all that we've learned from the past, ideally, all that we hope to draw on as we move into the future. And I'm going to be using the metaphor of light to help us really sort of access a sense of what our original medicine, our unique contributions to this time might be. How many of you feel like y'all are change agents? I know I'm here with a group of folk. You're in touch with the sense that your life matters, yes? We're in touch with the sense that we have some light. And yet, how many of us are also feeling at this time a little bit uncertain? We're feeling a little bit overwhelmed with all of the different changes around us, or we have, and we come together to sort of feel our groundedness in the midst of that. But how many of you, nevertheless, are not exactly sure sometimes in the moments when you're out there in the world exactly how to bring forth your highest and best? How many of us? Am I the only one? Yeah, okay. So I can assure you, if you have ever felt any of that, you are absolutely not alone. You're absolutely not alone. So what I'd like us to do, I'd like you to do, as I share some of the stories that I carry about how I came to access my inner light and discern ways of remaining in touch with that, I'm going to be inviting you, of course, in all of this, to be thinking about your own journey in those ways. What are some of the experiences, moments in your life where you've touched into your inner light with the help of loved ones, perhaps, or experiences in the world? And what are some of the ways you're working to keep that light renewed and kindled? I call the effort to bring a kind of joyful creativity to that process of staying connected to my possibility. I call that soulful mindfulness. It's mindfulness because it's about present moment awareness. It's soulful because it's about, as my grandmother would say, and I'm going to speak more about her in a moment, it's about making a way out of no way. It's about realizing that, those barriers, as the singer James Brown used to say, soul music came from meeting I can't with energy, possibility, movement, and dance. So what we're going to be thinking about here is how, for each of us, we can take mindfulness practices, which we may be familiar with, and think about infusing them with this quality of soul and soulfulness that I'm mentioning here. So I want to start by sharing with you a little bit more about how I got here. As I mentioned, I'll talk about my grandmother here a bit. I grew up in a small town called Kinston, North Carolina. It's a town in the southern part of the United States, and it is therefore part of the country that is associated with, right, history of oppression, racism, sexism, the interlocking ways that systems kept people like me, people like my grandmother in her time, really, from accessing opportunities. Nevertheless, my grandmother had a way, found a way of accessing her light. Her practices, and she wouldn't have used the word practices, but they were both individual and daily commitments, right? So regular daily commitments, and also community and sort of more infrequent commitments that together helped her feel the mattering of her life, even in a world that was constantly telling her that, as a person without very much education, who cleaned houses for other people, that she didn't have very much to offer. So my grandmother, Nanny Suggs, would get up every day before dawn, and her daily practice would be about centering prayer. And so she would, before coming out of her room, spend 30, 40 minutes really centering herself. And then she would come out, she would read scriptures, and then the little ones in the house would come and sit by her feet and take that in. And so as she would do that, she'd be sitting by a hearth, actually a pot-bellied stove in the middle of this small house. And so within me, I carried this image of my grandmother, who every day made a connection between her own life and the possibilities, again, beyond those that were presented for her by the environment in which she saw around her. In addition to those daily practices, my grandmother would take us to church on Sundays, and in church, we'd sit together like we've been sitting and getting to know each other here and singing a bit like you heard already. Before a pastor would come, it was a norm of our church, that community. Maybe someone would start humming. This little light mine. And a song might come. And if you know these words or you start to hear them, and I'd love it if you join me, we'd be suddenly singing, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Beautiful. And yes, and so singing like that in community with family really helped me to feel that I did have some inner light, that even if the society around me didn't always echo it, I had that in me. Now, later as an adult, I found mindfulness practices, which interestingly, the Buddha also talked about mindfulness as helping us access the lamp unto ourselves that we will need to see more clearly the ways forward. And still, though I had this background, though I had mindfulness practice as a support, the recent period that we've been in has left me feeling at times a bit adrift, a bit uncertain. So I want to tell you about a story about how a couple of three recent forces, I'm going to call them, helped me to get back in touch with ways of regularly accessing that inner light that I started to see as a little girl back in North Carolina. So like so many of us, the pandemic and all of the uncertainties, the interlocking uncertainties of the recent era, climate change and political polarization and violence happening, all of the technological changes, et cetera, was starting to make me feel like there was just so much happening. I was starting to feel a little bit overwhelmed. I don't know, am I the only one? Feeling like an ocean of change was just, buffeting me. But actually, I started to feel within that a call to change within, a call to see what barriers I might be experiencing to new ways of bringing my light forward, new ways of meeting the challenges of this time. So I felt something in that ocean that was about a call for me to change, not just to be aware of what was happening outside, but I still wasn't sure quite what to do. Then another force came, a health crisis came. So without going into all the details, let me just say it was something that happened to me personally that reminded me my life wasn't necessarily going to be here forever, and life is precious and short, so make the most of it. And then finally, as I was discerning, okay, well, what does that really, really mean for me right now? Out of nowhere, I found myself wanting to listen to music a lot, and I wanted to listen to the same music a lot, and it was this one artist I was getting obsessed with. It was George Michael. Okay, some of y'all know George Michael, you're 80s, you grew up in the 80s. Some of you younger folk, you've never learned about George Michael because your parents and the rest of us were somewhat consumed by him for a period of time. Wham! And Faith album and the song, Freedom, Freedom, Freedom. You gotta give what you take. So for a period just recently, I was just like, I would find myself starting to work on writing or editing something, preparing something, and I want to listen to some George Michael. And I want to then go and do a deep dive about him and find out why he wrote these lyrics. It's a little embarrassing. I'm a law professor, and I'm like constantly thinking and wanting to move and dance and sing. And it was, in a way, didn't feel like me, but it felt very much like it was giving me life. And what I came to see as when I brought my regular sort of mindfulness practice to what is this, what I saw was it wasn't just the sort of embarrassing way that I was going back to my childhood and regressing into like the Rhonda that used to dance and sing. It was something calling forth a recognition of a new way that my inner light wanted to be shown. I am about music. I have always wanted to sing more. But in the work that I've been doing, you don't typically have lawyers bringing music into things. You don't typically have us, dancing our way into things, bringing it into law school classes, right? So even though I had brought mindfulness into law school classes, which was a bit of an innovation, I really felt like there was even more. And this time was calling for even more. So that is an example then of, again, making space through mindfulness to see more clearly some new energy, some new way that my own light was wanting to be shown. And so, my beautiful ones, I want to ask you, have you ever experienced something like this? Where in your own life, out of nowhere, you're doing these things you advertise, and then inside behind that, you're doing something else. You may not quite understand why you're so drawn to this, why you feel like, you're almost obsessed with it. I want to suggest that soulful mindfulness can be a way of making space for all of who you are, even the parts that are not ready for prime time, but through which your own new, revitalized inner light might be wanting to shine. So I want to invite you, beautiful dear ones, to pause with me, to reflect on what might be wanting to be seen more clearly in your life right now. What might be wanting to be engaged more robustly right now? Is there a way to create space for creatively allowing this newly energized, this part of you that you're not quite sure how it fits with the rest of you, to actually be integrated so that you can really be the flame that you are, the light that you are, this star that can burn brightly from here? So I want to invite us then to create space through just a little, very brief practice for listening to what is coming up in response to those questions. Y'all heard those questions, right? What's in you that might want to be seen and held differently? So let's create this space by just simply, if you'll repeat with me, breathe, ha, breathe, ha, breathe, ha, breathe, ha. What wants to be born, what wants to be born. Ah, ah, ah. Beautiful ones, the flame, the star that you are, is rich with infinite possibility, and it's already here. May a kind of soulful mindfulness support you, me, all of us in really feeling, really living that not only is this the moment and time of our lives, but you and your original gifts, your new way of being, the flight, the flame, the light that you are. We're made for this time. Thank you, beautiful ones. Thank you.